There's a lot of history here. This area where your house is played a part in the American Revolutionary War. In the 18th century, this whole area was part of the Dexter Farm. In fact, the Jeremiah Dexter farmhouse, built in 1754, still stands right down here on North Main Street. Well, everyone knows the story of the Battle of Yorktown, where the British General Cornwallis surrendered to General Washington and the American Continental Army in 1781. Less well known is the fact that Washington was aided by the services of 4,000 French troops under the direction of General Rochambeau. After the surrender, General Rochambeau had to march his troops back to Boston to return to France, and on the way back they stopped here. To the south of here, just one block, is Rochambeau Avenue. And less than a block to the west is Camp Street, Rochambeau's camp. This was Rochambeau's camp. That's a nice bit of history. Before that, it was farmland, and before European settlement, there was basically nothing here.
Speaking.
Do you guys do yard work?
We sure do. Landscaping, tree and shrub work, lawn care.
Do you do, restoration?
What do you mean, restoration? You mean like, after some damage?
Well, no, there's no recent damage. I just want to restore my yard to the way it should be naturally. Like, I don't think the kind of grass I have is native.
Well, probably not. Most common grasses are European or from the Middle East, or they're developed in labs. There are very few perennial grasses that are native, as you call it, to this area, you know.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the kind of thing I'm trying to find out, so I can restore the yard to the way it was before there were people, so it's natural, like the way it's supposed to be.
Listen, when you say restore, let's put it this way. You know, you give me a piece of furniture like an old rocking chair, you know, I can restore it. It's because it's man-made. I can look at an old picture, you know, and research the kind of finishes, the tools, techniques used, you know, the time the chair was made. You know, I can make it look like that again, restore it. But Guy, come on here. You know, I don't think you can really restore nature, you know. I mean, you know, the whole concept isn't the same. Nature is constantly in flux. You know what that means, flux, my friend?
Well,
it's not static, you
yeah.
know. It cycles. Nature has cycles, you know. Things change, you know, and you know, the plants, the animals, the insects, the climate, you know, and everything is part of an interconnected system here. There's a balance. It's a balance, you know. But it's, you know, it's always changing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Probably wherever you live, there, you know, been influences of people for hundreds of years changing the landscape to suit, you know, their particular way of life, but, you know, or whatever. So when you say restore, like, restore what? What do you restore it to?
Yeah.
You know, where do you live?
On the east side?
Okay, well, that's a densely populated area where tremendous damage has been done to the landscape. How can you restore that? I mean, I've heard of restoring wetland areas to bring back certain species, but we've lost, you know, habitats, that kind of thing. But to restore your little yard to look the way that particular spot is naturally supposed to be, I mean, come on, you know, how can I do it? You know, you don't have the diversity of life, you know, that was there 500 or 1,000 years ago. You know, there's been too much damage from construction and introduction of invasive species and whatever you have there, you know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, how can you feel so strongly about this and be in the landscape business?
Hey, Guy, there's no free lunch, you know what I mean? Even in nature, there's no free lunch. Listen, call me if you need some work done, something specific, you know, I'll be glad to come out and see what you got. Is that all right?
Yeah, okay, all right, yeah.
Do me a favor, ask for Rick, okay?
Okay, yeah, I will. Thanks for your help.
Yeah, no problem. Richie.
Hello, Rick?
No, this is Richie. Richie's out on a job. Is there something I can help you with?
Well, yeah, let me just see what you think about this problem. I found a hole in the yard, and I want it removed.
You have just a hole in the soil or something? Just one hole?
Well, it's a deep hole. It has stones on the side like a well, maybe?
Let me ask you something. Is it just an opening in the ground about the size of a hubcap with bricks or cinder blocks, or some type of masonry around the opening?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Well, that's probably an old septic tank from before your house was connected to the sewer system.
Well, can you remove the hole?
Remove the hole? I'm sorry. I'm just laughing because you're saying remove the hole. To make a hole, you remove material, right?
Yeah.
So you have to just fill the hole, not remove the hole, you know? You fill the hole. You've got to fill the earth and subdue it, right? That's what the Bible says.
It does?
J&D, this is Rick.
Hey, Rick, it's Jeff Adams. I don't know if you remember, but I talked to you last week about restoring my yard.
Geoff. Yeah, right. Yeah, right, yeah, okay, you're up on the east side and you wanted to restore your yard to, like before civilization, right?
Well, I guess I just need to know exactly what's in the yard, like what species of plants, and make sure that they're okay together.
Okay, we do what we call a diagnostic lawn checkup, and, it doesn't cost anything. There's no obligation. We come in, we look at the lawn, the trees, the shrubs. We come up with a complete program for you. It's really just to inform you about, problem areas. Out of control growth or plants that are inhibiting growth, that kind of thing,
And then what would you do after that?
And then we develop a 5-step lawn, recovery program for you based on our analysis. The idea is to allow the European lawn grass to be very thick and to dominate so that these weeds are just snuffed out. They can't compete against the thick lawn cover.
But what if some of the weeds are native species that I want to keep or I want them to live?
Well, you can plant a nice garden of native wildflowers that will cohabitate beautifully with the lawn. You don't want weeds, do you?
Well,
just because something is native, that doesn't mean it's good, a lot of native plants are also invasive.
Oh.
Listen, I have a job up on the east side next week, and I can send over one of my guys to do the diagnostic. How's that?
All right, but do I have to be here for that?
No. Yeah, no problem. We'll take a look at the yard, and we'll call you at your convenience with a plan for lawn recovery. What's the name and address again?
It's Jeff Adams, 23...
property, and I have prepared a lawn analysis for you that I would like you to discuss, with you, at your convenience. Call me at 381-4490, okay? Bye-bye. Jane D, this is Rick.
Hey, Rick, it's Jeff Adams. You called me earlier today about the lawn analysis that you did for me?
Yeah, right. Hold on a second. Yep, here it is. Okay, now with your yard, you got about 30 different types of grasses growing there. Did you know that?
Whoa, 30 kinds. That's great.
No, that's not great. We want one kind. Monoculture. You want monoculture.
But what about the ecosystem?
Oh, you're beautiful. Your little yard doesn't constitute an ecosystem in my book. If you want to maintain a yard, something's got to go, my friend. We want to, cultivate the lawn, right? Cultivate it, not just let it run wild. We look at your property in terms of overall value and beauty of each species.
Well, also, what are all the little flags that your guy left all around the yard?
The red flags, those are bad areas, slated for what we call our first line offensive against weeds and lawn invasives. The flags mark where there's something that shouldn't be someplace.
Oh. Well, I didn't understand what they were for, so I think my son and I, we messed them up a little bit.
Oh, you shouldn't have done that.
Dad! Look at all these flags!
What are they? What are they doing here? Hey.
Geoff, you got a bigger problem out there.
What?
You have an eastern hemlock tree, and your neighbor in the back there, he's got 5 of them, and one of his is ready to fall down.
What's the problem?
The hemlock woolly adelgid.
What's that?
It's a little aphid-like insect from Japan that kills hemlocks, and your tree and your neighbors are infested. Like I said, one of your neighbor's trees has got to come down now.
Well, is there anything you can do about my tree?
We spray a horticultural oil on the trees twice a year, and, that suffocates the adelgid and allows recovery of the hemlock, usually.
But what about the adelgid?
The adelgid is a pest, we just kill it.
But why kill the bug so that the tree can live? The adelgid is just part of the natural cycle, right?
The adelgid is a parasite, man. It's a parasite. We kill it to save the tree. You know what I'm saying?
Does the spray harm anything? Is it poisonous?
No. Don't worry about that stuff. It's perfectly safe. It's not poison. It just suffocates the adelgid.
What if we don't spray?
The tree will die within 3 to 5 years. Completely die.
And if we spray, how long will the tree survive?
Well, to be honest, there's no guarantee. The adelgid, could eventually win. You could save the cost of spraying by just, taking the tree down.
So the adelgid is going to get the tree either way?
Possibly, yes.
There's a lot of history here. This area where your house is
infested with hemlock woolly adelgid, a non-native parasite.
Well, everybody knows the story of
How the adelgid arrived in North America.
Less well known is the fact that
It has no natural predators here, and the hemlock has no natural resistance.
and
To save the hemlocks, we have to control the adelgid.
dated by...
Horticultural oil.
That's a nice bit of history.
Well, maybe we should have you cut it down.
Well, Jeff, that's your choice. Like if it has sentimental value, if you want to spray or cut it down, or you have to decide that yourself. You still there?
Yeah, no, I was just, I'm thinking.